being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a grab.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's the warrior spirit right there, boy.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
90-yard touchdown. 90-yard touchdown.
It's going to be picked off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Herbert sets his feet, takes a shot downfield, has Guyton. Caught! Touchdown, Chargers!
That's the greatest throw I've ever seen.
Let's fucking go, baby! Thunder Down Under, Chargers Football Podcast. Andy here, your host, joined by the one and only Jack. How are you, my brother?
What's going on? Good, mate. I'm very good. Just here in Melbourne for Christmas, so looking forward to seeing your face next week while we watch some Monday Night Football. Cannot wait.
Heck yeah, man. No, it's good to have you back home, spending time with the fam. Notably, we are down one times bald man, as we will be for the next 5 weeks. You won't hear another peep of that until he's back, and the Chargers are up to their waists in a deep playoff run. Our wonderful listeners and viewers, thank you. Welcome. If you are new to the show, 2, sometimes 3 mates having a drink and talking all things about our beloved LA Chargers, all the way here from Melbourne, Australia, sometimes Adelaide as well. Something a bit different. Give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate it. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Football time. Yeesh, that's a result right there. Titans and Chargers recap. Chargers and Colts preview. Let's get it. Los Angeles Chargers 17 at Tennessee Titans 14. Another crucial conference matchup face the Royal Blue Chargers at home. Could this crippled run defense stop King Henry? Could Staley's defense back up last week's performance and halter what was left of the Titans' offense? Defense, with SJD and Callahan back looking the business. Offense clicking along. Jeffrey Simmons did his best to put Herbert in an early grave, but the young stud QB rose. 2 quick completions to Keenan Allen, a big 14-yard gain on 3rd and 16, and another on 4th and 2. The Bolts then rode Joshua Kelly right through the red zone for the first score of the afternoon. Titans returned serve early in the second quarter. Derrick Henry unleashing the beast, gaining all 63 yards on the drive and the ensuing touchdown out of the Wildcat. Just as the relentless Tennessee running game looked to break the game open, the defense held strong against an immobilized Tannehill. The offense just couldn't get the points on the board. A freak interception by Roger McCreary foiling plans for a late field goal before the half. The third quarter worries continued. When you see Eckler cop a Falcon on a wheel route, it smells trouble. Another sack and J.K. Scott was at it again. The struggle was real. Another couple more punts and a brain fade by Herbert. One too many small windows, and this one made it 2 picks for the day. But the way things continued to play out, the football gods were favouring the home side. You could feel it. For every Herbert sack on 3rd down, the defense gobbled up Ryan Tannehill, pushing fat Randy just out of range from 51 yards. Austin Eckler indicated any early game niggles or cause for concern were a thing of the past, breaking bulk tackles on back-to-back red zone rushes, eventually landing himself in the end zone. 14-7, and the momentum was back with the Bolts. Stopping Henry continued to be a real concern, but a Drew Tranquil sack on 3rd and 9 provided the Chargers with another offensive opportunity to put the game to rest. 3 plays in 14 seconds was probably not the possession any Chargers fan envisioned. The response, 14-14, 0:48 left on the clock. See, this is when you love that your quarterback is Justin Herbert. Full sicko mode. Rolls right, extends the play, fends off the rusher, sets and launches a flat bomb to Mike Williams on the sideline at the 22. Kick of the dicker finishes it off. 6 seed, baby! Chargers are 8-6 on the year. Very grateful the Lions got it done against the Jets, and the Patriots totally shit the bed against the Raiders. First and last time we'll ever cheer for the Raiders, but that was an all-timer. As for the Titans, it seemed there was a player down on most possessions in this game, possibly adding to their ever-growing injury list. With the Jags' walk-off pick 6 against Dallas, there is only one game separating the two for the lead in the AFC South. Mate, it's good to have this one in the books with all the implications at this point in the season. How did you see the game?
This is a game where I probably walk away with more questions than I have answers. It was just one of those games, right? I think it's probably the flattest game I can remember watching. I think I was sitting there just sort of being like, oh, okay. It was a bit of a defensive, slobber knocker. I think I alluded to that on last week's show. But you're right. Herbo going full turbo, full sicko mode. That pass that he put to Keenan Allen down the sideline as well in the game when he just lobbed it into double, triple coverage. Incredible. I think let's start on the positives before we move into some of the more questions, I guess the answers that I've got. But I thought the offensive line held up quite well. That's the seventh. The Titans have the seventh ranked defense per PFF in the league. So they're no slouches, even though, as you said, that they're completely ravaged by injury. At the end of the day, Herbert was only sacked twice. And he had one hit and 3 hurries. So, 6 total pressures out of 45 dropbacks, which is pretty exceptional, I thought, given the talent. You alluded to Jeffrey Simmons, Okereke, and some of the sorry, not Okereke, that's the Colts. But some of their pass rushes I thought which was fantastic.
Yeah, well, on top of that, saying the Titans were the third best team against the run, or have been this year, and we really committed to it. Early probably faded away a little bit with our commitment to the run game as the game wore on. Probably needed it a little bit more there, but on the whole, not too bad execution. You're always going to be, I think we had 24 carries, 72 yards, and then you look at, 3 a clip, and then you look over at Derrick Henry and he's amassed over 100 and really made a mockery of us.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, you said Austin Eckler before, but I mean, you look at his stat line and you go, well, he's 58 yards from 12 carries, and that's not particularly. You go, all right, that's not too bad. But then you look at it, it's like he had 41 yards after contact, which is insane out of that 58, and he also amassed 7 missed tackles. So when he was running, he's running angry, and even though we didn't look dominant on the ground, that performance by Eckler was key in getting at least something there. And yes, it's no King Henry and the wildcat snap where we go, oh my God, what's happening? And, goes in for a touchdown. And kudos to Eckler as well, because he took a big hit on that shoulder. I think I'm a bit worried about that, whether he plays this week, but he came back and the team actually really needed him because Joshua Kelly wasn't getting too much production on the ground. But yeah, you're right.
Maybe not consistently throughout the game, but I have to disagree with you because I thought he was really good in that opening drive. There wasn't something quite right with Eckler, and he shouldered the load, and they really rode him in to the end zone. That was a good play, good set of runs by Kelly.
That was one of my questions to you. I was going to be like, what did you think of Joshua Kelly's game? Given that Eckler went down early and we didn't really see too much of him, and did we force Eckler back in? I don't know. But you said, you thought he had a pretty good game?
Yeah, I did. From what I saw early on when we needed him, like I said, I felt like we erred away from the running game a little bit. We stymied a lot of offensive possessions. There was a lot of punts going on there in that sort of second and third quarter. But I thought the use of Kelly early was good, and he scored a touchdown. So I thought he did well. When he stepped up when we needed him, and Austin Eckler obviously was all right, came back into the game. Like I said, busted those tackles to get, I think, 12 on that first effort, and then 1 or 2 yards that he needed to get into the zone. And that was a second, third effort kind of run as well. So it's just awesome to have a pound for pound operator like Austin Eckler in the team. Really good.
It's interesting that we seem to be going with Eckler and Kelly, but we're not really. I mean, Sonny Michel's, I saw, had the injury cloud over him. But Spiller, as far as I'm concerned, is not under an injury cloud. He's just not getting carries. So we seem to be fairly happy with the Kelly and the Eckler sort of backfield, and that might, give some kind of insight into how Lombardi's thinking about the game. He'd rather have sort of, Kelly can definitely catch the ball better than Spiller. So, having that dual threat running back at the moment is probably what we kind of need, given the injuries on the offensive line and us not really being able to run the rock consistently well, at least, which is fascinating.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we could jump right into it because the way you've fed that with Lombardi just makes me think that he's trying to operate under a keep it simple principle, and it just feeds right into his conservatism. So maybe we'll double back to this afterwards because we can really sink our teeth into that, and we'll start off with a few more maybe positives.
Positives, yeah. I definitely think Alohi Gilman was our highest rated run defender behind Fahoko and Carl Van Noy. So I don't know what Alohi Gilman has eaten in the past couple of weeks or what Brandon Staley has said to him, but the guy's playing lights out. The guy's playing like, he's empowered to play the position. And Nas also had a great game. So, Alohi Gilman's not a particularly big player either. And to say that he stuffed a couple of runs and was key in stopping Henry getting downfield for bulk yardage, I thought was fantastic. And generally speaking, the defense just had a complete lights out game. I think, Michael Davis had another incredible game. He only allowed one catch for 4 yards on 3 targets, forced an incompletion and had a pass rating when thrown at him of 42.2, which is insane, right? And I guess so what are we going to do with Michael Davis? Do we give him another contract, Andy? I don't know. What do we do?
Did we talk about it a little bit last week? Because I reckon there's a way of... I think I think Callahan's been great. Callahan's been great and arguably our best signing, best pickup from the free agency haul. But very close behind him is Michael Davis. And you're saying that with Michael Davis only playing half the sort of snaps, or half the reps that Callahan has. So I saw a lot more of Ja'Sir Taylor than I did kind of Asante in certain packages as well. Tannehill was operating a lot with the tight ends as his receivers because he has no wide receivers available. So having the bigger body of Ja'Sir Taylor kind of trumped Asante Samuel. Michael Davis is playing better than Asante Samuel.
He's our best cornerback this year.
Yeah, very close to it. Traditional quarterback, I think you've got to extend him. I think you've got to extend him and work out a way to have his cap hit not be $9 million next year like it will be. That's
I do wonder what he's going to do, because if it's last year, will he play? Will he hold? He wouldn't hold out. He doesn't strike me as a person that would do that. I mean, not to jump into the news too much, but our supposedly number one gun quarterback has found himself in a bit of legal trouble earlier today. So I have a feeling that Michael Davis, give him some money, get him on the field and play, because who knows what happens with JC Jackson next year. But let's not get too down onto that. And just to hark back on the defense, man, like, this is PFF's. They're ranked number 10. They're in their rushing, and we stopped them. I mean, yes, Henry had 104, 105 yards, whatever it was, but we didn't let any really big runs go. I thought we played...
13 was the longest run. That's a great result.
And that is bending, don't break. I thought the linebackers had another great game. Credit where credit's due. K9 is sort of putting together some pretty good performances the last 2 weeks. Definitely not as strong as he was last week, but I tell you what, that the middle of the field is not looking so soft anymore, which is fantastic. And it's a credit to Brandon Staley too, because whatever he's doing, he's throwing the kitchen sink and just going, I'm just got to coach the shit out of the players that I've got, because that's all I can do.
Before you move on from K9, I did have a question for you directly about Kenneth Murray. Where do you see his progress to the current point in the season? Like, we have hung shit on him and then admitted, opened up, look, hey, we've said all this stuff, but he wasn't playing great, and now he's playing a little bit better, and we're respecting that. Well, he's probably stringing. This is probably the most consistent purple patch of his career that he's had. Where do you see his strengths and weaknesses? What do you think he's progressing in or getting worse at?
Well, given that he had the highest coverage grade of the defense on the weekend per PFF, I've got to say that he's got to be doing something right. So maybe he's playing without Derwin there. Is he playing more free? And is he not concerned about, we talked about it last week, how when you've got a Swiss Army knife in Derwin James that, and that Derwin will perhaps make audibles or, change where he's going to be positioned on the field given what he sees from the opposition offense, and that has a ripple effect to all the players around him. So, K9 might have to change what he's doing or what he originally had to do with the play call because Derwin is doing something else. So I mean, he doesn't seem to be getting caught up on blockers at the second level anymore. He doesn't seem to be attacking I mean, you need to be ferocious when you attack the line of scrimmage, right? You need to be that, especially stop the run. But he seems to be he's thinking about it a little more, and he's not just going head first and getting sort of caught up in the I guess in the complete sort of jungle that can be the offensive and defensive lines when they clash. So yeah, I mean, it's just solid. He's just playing good football. And Drew Tranquil is also playing good football. So I don't think I can personally, I haven't looked at it close enough to perhaps pinpoint it. But all I can say that he's not the liability that he was, 6-7 weeks ago, which is fantastic. I'm going to fire a question back at you then, Andy. And I say this with a grin, viewers and listeners. I don't think this is a 100% serious question. But does the defense actually need Derwin James back?
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? Do they need Joey Bosa back? Like, who gives a shit? Fuck them, man. We're paying them money. JC Jackson, get out of here. We don't need to do it. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's awesome. It's that. Oh, but what if? If they're back, would they play the same? Would there be more focus by our like second and third tier players for the responsibility to fall on those guys, and will they fall back on their laurels kind of when they return? It's hard to say. I'd like to think that this group I've seen this group. I've seen it from Justin Herbert in the way that he is on the field and after the game, to this defense on the field and everyone in the locker room, and how there's just been a shift in the energy amongst everyone, and it is just like it's almost at that like full gel point, and it's really, for me, exciting to sort of see that. So I think that they've turned the corner mentally, most of them. I still think there's a little bit too much of this sort of dancing business when the receiver drops the ball and Asante did nothing to break up the pass.
That's one of your biggest bugbears, isn't it? I know that's your biggest bugbear.
I think I share that with Al. It's just like, mate, you ain't done nothing. Celebrate, go nuts responsibly when you do it, but yeah, I'm just seeing a lot more cohesion and direction in the endeavor.
Well, cohesion's the word, right? That's what we're looking for. We were looking at, how I said, I put it to you, 16, 17 weeks ago now, we're talking about the cohesion, the consistency of this group. And I hadn't seen it even in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks. There was some really good football from the defense versus some really poor football from the offense, and vice versa. And that sine wave of performance, during a game was really quite large. So you had one or two players playing exceptionally well, the rest of them weren't playing well, or you had a special teams playing really well, but the offense and the defense were mediocre. I feel that sine wave between our worst performances and our best performances is slowly getting smaller. So we're playing more of that consistent, cohesive football. And you know what? Sometimes the best thing for a leader, and this is how I hope Derwin James is looking at it, but for a leader, is to actually take a step off the field, be involved. I saw he had the radio on, so he's hearing everything that was going off into the defense and possibly the offense as well. But sometimes for, when you're in a player of his caliber, to take a step back and look at our defensive line who have got third, fourth, fifth, sixth stringers, and to look at the cornerback room that's been sort of pretty much decimated, having JC Jackson disappear, and seeing these guys younger than you, who I guess you've kind of tutored with Naz and Gilman, and to cover the linebackers with K9 and Tranquil, and you're sort of sitting back and these guys are performing really well. That can be sometimes a really humbling experience, and it means that perhaps maybe when Derwin and Joey come back, they're not trying to do absolutely everything all the time, because they've got the trust. They've seen the performance from their teammates around them. Because, when you're on the field, it's a very different kettle of fish. You're focused on yourself. You're focused on making sure you perform. But when you've got that step back, you do build a little bit of that. I'm going to call it positional and player empathy. And you can see those players. And I truly believe that this is what's happening. And I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Staley is talking about that with his leadership group. SJD sitting out last week might have been a really sort of humbling experience. On that, though, what was going on the sideline?
Oh,
That
I
was
knew
a
you were
that
getting
was
to
a
that.
weird thing. That was
It
a
was a
really weird
delightful little
thing.
segue.
It
Delightful little
was,
segue. I
yeah.
don't mind it. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I'm not too sure who exactly SJD was having words with, because he looked like he was mouthing off at Kenny Murray, a little bit of
Yeah,
Drew Tranquil, and he was probably just, giving Kenny Murray a bit of a rev up. I couldn't work out what he said. I didn't look at it enough to sort of lip read him. But then he was having words with Fayoko, and Fayoko was like, yeah, I get it, man. Like, the chilled out dudes, just like, relax,
yeah,
all right? And then I
yeah.
think maybe Morgan Fox came in and was like, y'all need to chill. But I don't know, maybe he's getting fired up. I like it if that's the standard that they're setting, that is like, it's
I
three
agree.
and out every time.
Yeah,
And they're so capable of doing it. Oh, so awesome to see that on the opening drive. Gilman, as you mentioned earlier, on Okoronkwo, he had a little feast later, but it was the defense. It's really awesome to see that Staley's defense, even without these stars, is it's being as good as it is. And
yeah. And
look, look. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. They were missing a lot of players on both sides of the ball. Incredibly decimated team by injuries, and thankfully for us, at least in the weapons department, we've got everyone available. Little Palm sprinkled in there today. Josh Palmer landed on his back. Looked a bit how you going,
yeah,
and look,
he was 5 for
between
5. Didn't drop a ball though. He's becoming a very, very, very handy third receiver. Very, very
yeah,
handy.
he goes for me. He goes so unnoticed when Mike and Keenan are on the field. Like,
Yeah,
just little pickups, and you're like, oh yeah, but you're like, whoa. Gerald Everett stands out for me because I just reckon he is always hungry as. When he hangs on to the ball, when he
yeah,
doesn't drop it, he's
yeah.
always trying to fight off tackles. He gets tackled and he's like, get off me, and keeps fighting for extra yards. It's awesome to see. Maybe we're seeing, hopefully, a little potential offensive mutiny from the captain, the captain
Well,
coordinator. I'd
well,
like to see
should we talk about it? We probably should talk about it now. We probably should. So, I mean, the little segue, and Andy, I'll say this to you. The last pass to Williams, it had a 22.6 completion probability, very, very low. The
Is
speed of the throw,
is that from snap to
that yeah,
completion?
that's from snap to throw, yeah, to catch. So I mean, not the lowest,
Because
because
it
we've
would
seen
wave, right? It would, like, sorry
correct
to interrupt you. It would, so 22.6 was the low point. Yeah, okay.
the low point, and I guess
Yeah.
that's we've seen some throws this year from Mahomes and other top tier quarterbacks that are below 5%. But he threw it at just shy of 15 miles an hour. That was the fastest that it could. So that's about 30 kilometers. That's half decent. The target separation from Mike Williams was zero point 0.8 yards, and then the sideline separation was zero point 0.7 yards. So I'm going there and going, awesome, we won the game, incredible throw. It was a rope, great. But surely we need to try and scheme Mike Williams, Keenan Allen open more often so we don't have to rely on these ridiculous odds for us to win games. And that's where I fall. The play calling from Lombardi, we get Pipkins back, which means that Herbert has a little bit more time, and yet we just saw the same basic stick concept, the same basic throw it to Keenan or trust Keenan to get open with his technique, throw it to Mike so he can monster his opposing cornerback and make an incredible catch. We still see the same kind of runs, the same little outlets. It's just starting to really piss me off. And I'm going to say it officially. I'm out on Joe. I'm it. It's done. It's done. I don't think the offense doesn't suit Herbert. It's a personnel thing. And yes, unfortunately, we just don't have. I need to see some more. Where do you sit on it?
Probably been closeted for a little while, but been off him for a good while. I think this week was to win in that fashion with 48 seconds. Like, sure, it makes you feel good, and the endorphin rush afterwards is fantastic. But why the heck do we keep having to win these games by a score? Is there any danger of it just can we just smash a team? This team had that many injuries. Ryan Tannehill was hobbling about and looked trash. If it wasn't for Derrick Henry, who, you could tell he was starting to wear out by the... Oh, he kind of bashed in, but he wasn't on the field for most of the last drive. It was all the tight ends work, and he was just at the goal line. But, yeah, for us just to consistently not be able to put up 25-plus points a week, with this offense, with everyone back, and our rookies are playing at an awesome level on the offensive line.
Oh, ridiculous level.
Crazy level. Sometimes the personnel choices are good. I actually, going back to your question earlier, I don't mind the fact that it's just Josh Kelly and Austin Eckler. Just keep it simple and get these guys doing the job. Because we do waver with the commitment to the run game throughout. What I will say, though, is that it seems like our scripted plays are becoming a little bit better than what it has been on offense. And then once we have to sort of adjust to the game, that's when we sort of struggle. Like running up the middle when all the pressure's coming from Jeffrey Simmons up the middle.
What are we doing?
It's stuff like that that's sort of mind-boggling. Like that drive that we had, 3 minutes 19 left on the clock. Carter returned the kick, bugger all. So we're in our 15 or whatever. And we go 3 and out. And it was a run up the middle for no gain. Pocket got blown up, so Herbert had to throw it into the ground at the receiver's feet. And then the last one was another incompletion. Completion, but like well short of the line to gain. To Josh Palmer, maybe. And it's just like, whoa, just try it. Like, if you why not just run it? Why not just run it outside and just try and take a little bit more, make them use their timeouts so they don't have the opportunity to keep stopping the clock after the 2 minutes. And we have to rush their offense. I guess that, in a way, could fail for us, but it just 14 seconds off the clock on that drive is just awful. When that's the drive where you go, okay, enough's enough. Let's go down, just keep moving the chains.
We've got Justin Herbert.
And win the game. We've got Justin Herbert.
We've got Mike Williams. We've got Austin Eckler. We've got Keenan Allen. We've got, Solier playing at an incredibly high level. We've got Johnson. We've got Lindsay in the game. You've got your right tackle back. What are we doing? I've got two things. And the first thing where I'll start is you look at a case study between the two most senior coaches, and they would be Staley being one and Lombardi being the other. We've seen a development in Staley's play calling. And the game plan that he had prepared for the Dolphins last week needed to be vastly different from the game plan that we were preparing for this week. The defense, minus all those stars, played lights out. Staley had a tight game. And this is where we see the coach and the teacher shining through. And those defensive players trusting in Staley, trusting in the scheme. Yeah, it's taken that Bosa to be out and Derwin James to be out, but I do feel like there's a sense of trust. On the flip side of this case study, we have Joe Lombardi, who refuses, I feel, to change, refuses to do anything different, refuses to do anything outside of what he knows. Granted, it's a little different because you've got quarterback, which is the toughest position in all the sports. You don't want to put too much pressure on him. But I just don't, there's just not enough there. And as I said, it might be an awesome system, might be a fantastic system, great, but it's not the system that Justin Herbert needs. And it's not the system that these wide receivers are built to run with. A system should support Justin Herbert. It shouldn't be the other way around. I feel at the moment that Justin Herbert is supporting Joe Lombardi's system. It's not the system, and then, Justin Herbert's skill set and ability should be the cherry on top. That's the matching. It shouldn't be the other way around. We shouldn't need to be relying on Justin Herbert to make ridiculous throws to win the game. It's great because any offensive scheme will need those. Of course, I understand that. But it just feels there's so much pressure on him every single fucking game to play at an all-pro level. And when he doesn't, everyone's like, Justin Herbert's a social media quarterback. He can't do anything. So
that's the underlying issue, isn't it? That's the underlying issue, is that he is in not wanting to put too much pressure on him, which I don't understand. He's a professional athlete. He thrives on pressure. Put pressure on him. He's got stars to make plays for him. He has the arm to do it. Let him do it. Stop treating him like he's Colt McCoy or some sixth round rubbish rookie. And what you end up doing by making the whole playbook conservative until it comes to a point where, oh shit, we've got less than a minute to win the game with no timeouts. That is pressure. That is dumping unnecessary pressure on him. So there's an odd little paradox in there by not
there
wanting
is
to complicate things. He's a 4.0 biology.
exactly.
He's a
I mean-
damn nerd. He gets it.
But you say that's so correct. That's so right, Andy, and that's the heart of my argument here. And let's just go back to this. Let's just use this dichotomy again of Staley versus Lombardi. I tweeted out exactly on that 3 and out, 14 seconds. I said, this is the time for Lombardi to be aggressive. I wouldn't have minded seeing throws downfield. I wouldn't have minded seeing Justin Herbert peel out and try to make a ridiculous throw across his body. At least that's being aggressive. You're not learning because we've seen that or every single freaking, or not every week, but almost every week, this conservative approach. And then on the flip side, okay, Staley goes, fuck, all right, my offensive coordinators put me out here. The Titans move down the field. And then this was going to be my teachable moment. We're going to quickly rush over this. But the way Staley used his timeouts at the end of the game, masterclass. Because he hasn't done that before. He's made mistakes in that time management game. He gave Justin Herbert just shy of 50 seconds to go and win the game. Now, that's a coach playing to your quarterback strengths and going, okay, hey, we've got the superstar here. I'm not going to try and do too much on with my defense. They're probably going to score, fine, but what I will make sure is that there's time for Justin Herbert to go and operate. And it just so happens that the throws that Justin Herbert makes are outside of Lombardi's scheme anyway. It's ad-libbing. So, again, this dichotomy of Lombardi versus Staley, one is really progressing, adaptable, leading. The other, I feel, is just stagnating. It's just stagnant. And I don't think there's the ability or there's the capability to grow from there. I could be wrong, but, yeah, I think there's a moratorium on Lombardi now. I think it's time to, as we say in AFL, handball it off.
Yeah, just in general parlance, we handball things off all the time. All responsibilities.
Like Alistair, not being part of the show, pig.
It is a treat not to have any wedding chat. The first time in about 8 weeks we haven't had any
Very
wedding
much.
chat on the
Very
show.
true. Very true.
We would just be stuck into honeymoon chat soon enough. Woo. I hope they're having a great time. I'm sure they are.
Yes.
Just before we get onto that, just on some of Staley's stuff and his just, I feel like Lombardi prepares generically to games, whereas Staley goes, hey, you know what? This Titans team is the league's worst fourth down team. So let's go for it. We go for the first one and it works. I didn't actually like the way they executed the midway through the second quarter.
Yeah, I know the
Fourth
one.
and 1, trying to draw them offside, but they lined up with 9 seconds, trying to hard count them. And then had to call the timeout. When they ended up going, they sort of reversed their fortune by then having to go back on the field and, the offense going back on the field and then Tennessee burning a timeout because of it. And then we executed it anyway. So, yeah, it was a good decision not to throw the challenge flag on Keenan's incompletion. He said in his presser he got a good read on it and made a comment especially about Jasir Taylor being the bigger body, the better option to go against the tight ends. And, Jasir Taylor made 2 awesome open field tackles on big dudes. He got Austin Hooper, but early on he got Derrick Henry. And it was... Derrick Henry right near the goal line as well. Saved a touchdown, which I think he scored anyway. But...
Just last one, Andy, and we talk about Staley managing the game really well. Then that fucking delay of game that put us 5 yards back for Dicker the kicker. What's going on there? Because I tell you what, Staley was not happy, whatever was going on. So I
initially thought it was like a deliberate thing, and I was like,
so did I.
You can't kill the clock this way. Do you get a 10-second runoff for a delay of game at this point? That would take it down to 4 seconds. That's fine. But I don't know. And he was like, that wasn't good.
I think, Brandon, you have to take your mentor, which it has been Lombardi for a long time, your old mates, I get that, but you have to take him in, put an arm around him and just say, You're not getting it done, mate. I'm sorry. You're not getting it done. Hard conversation to have. One of the hardest he'll have in his career.
Well,
But
does Staley have to have that conversation? Does he fire his assistant, or does he get Telesco to do it?
depends.
I don't know
Well, I
I don't
mean,
know what the hierarchy is, but
if you had balls, if you're the head coach, you'd probably have that conversation with your coordinators. If that was me, that's just my personal opinion. But
yeah.
Anyway,
I'd find it hard to fire you, let's say. But if I'm saying, hey, Jack, man, we understand each other pretty well. You've got Justin Herbert as the quarterback, and you've struggled to put up 25 points on a consistent basis. You're fired! And you know what? I reckon we'd probably catch up for dinner afterwards, because you'd go, I reckon he's right. Oh,
fair.
well, we get through
Anyway.
it, and that was almost more morose than the actual enjoyment of the victory itself. But lots to work on. It's all serious. We've just got to keep winning, keep moving forward. We did mention the current honeymooner, and he's actually found himself hanging out with a great friend of the show, Kyle. Hanging out with Kyle in Carlsbad, and the two of them have had a couple of beers and prepared a little thing for us. So we'll get into them.
Jack, Andy, TDU listeners, I'm coming to you from the man cave of the great and powerful Kyle D. Dominican Tanio. What's up, brother?
Cheers. It's been so cool catching up with Alistair, meeting him and his lovely wife, Kirsten, here in Carlsbad. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you both. So this has been great.
We're having an awesome time here. Kyle's treated us, taken us all the way around his city. Kirsten's actually filming at the moment. Kirsten's been with us in Hawaii, and
supervision.
We've got a couple of little pets here as well. And thanks to all the Bolts from the Blue listeners who recommended places we should go in Hawaii, and restaurants and poke. We've had an amazing time, and we've also managed to enjoy the hospitality of Kyle, and we're about to meet his wife. And last night, perched right here, we watched Chargers versus Titans on delay, screaming, making noise, drinking some IPAs.
You were screaming. I had already watched the game. I was trying not to spoil it for you.
We got to win 8-6, and we have two questions for you, Jack and Andy. Andy, I'll ask you a question. Do you think the Chargers benefited from the fact that Tannehill came back into the game after his injury? Would the Titans have been better with Malik Willis playing that game? Kyle, what question do you have for Jack?
Jack, I know you like the trenches, so my biggest question would be, what do you feel has a bigger impact on the Chargers playing better defensive football in the trenches the last couple of weeks? Has it been personnel with, Fehiko stepping up and some of these other guys like Gaziano playing much better? Or has it been Staley making adjustments that have put them in better positions?
Okay, enjoy the rest of the show. We'll see you next week on the Thunder Down Under.
How wonderful.
How good's that? Good.
Having a few beers, I think, judging by some of the slurring of the words there, but that's all right. Don't we all?
Bit of Braden Fehiko. Not bad, not bad. Oh, look, very envious of their little trip. But awesome questions, of course. Al finds the time to invest in this show. We miss him. And how about the hands of a surgeon? With his lovely
Amazing.
wife there filming. Didn't get seasick at all. That's good.
Well done, Kirst.
All right, well, I'll answer first off, and it's a really good point that Al makes about Malik Willis coming in and out of the game, because Tannehill really only played that first drive beforehand. He didn't have a whole lot of going on for him, got injured, 3 and out. When he entered the game, I just sort of felt like there was an element of poor preparation, or potential for poor preparation. Team just looked a little bit stunned on a first couple of his plays, especially the one where he scrambled. They looked totally lost. So the answer is yes. I think it was a massive benefit, because when Tannehill forced his way back onto the field, I think it was a big disadvantage to the Titans' offense. As I said, Willis only played 1 series. He had 4 attempts, 3 completions, 20 yards. He had 0.3 of a second longer to throw the ball than Tannehill, but he also had the legs to move around, forced the missed tackle on his scramble, had that dual threat, it just tends to lead to adjustments being made to parry the RPO as you move forward into the game. And not to say that I thought we wouldn't be able to combat that, but I think it was beneficial. As it happens, the Titans ran on Derrick Henry a lot anyway. A lot of short completions to the open tight ends over the middle, or Henry himself. And for mine, Tannehill looked crap, and his mobility was rubbish. So, big win that Malik Willis only played a handful of snaps. Jack, what do you reckon about the defensive line?
Yeah, so I think I alluded to. I mean, a great question, Kyle. I do love the trenches. I love thinking about the big men coming together in a non-sexual way, of course.
Hey, man.
Even if it was, anyway. If you do, all the power to you as well. Listen,
Show.
that's right. I agree. It's a confluence of factors. I think it's not just one. I alluded to it earlier when I talked about Staley. I think Staley's teaching and coaching is absolute pants off. He's obviously connecting with his younger players. There is a stereotype of an older player. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And so, as I said before, maybe having Bosa, maybe having Derwin out, SJD out a little bit. These are these top tier players. Austin Johnson. I'm not saying that they don't listen, and I'm not putting that forward. But I think there is a little bit of a, you're younger, you're hungry, you're listening, you want to impress. So, you are actually listening to everything that Brandon is saying with his scheme, and you're executing it really well. Adding to that, I think there's a term in Australia we use called hard yakka, and that means hard work. I think when you're younger and you are wanting to, again, prove yourself, I think you work hard. And I'm not saying that the other players don't, sorry. I'm not saying, this is not a dichotomy here. But I think that's also another added bonus. And also, I think keep it simple, stupid. Kiss, the linebacker play, as we talked about before, is improving. And also, don't discount the fresh bodies that we have as well. So, you're sometimes playing against linemen that have played for 14, 15 weeks. Granted, the Titans were coming off the bye, were they? I can't remember if they were. Anyway. But no, they weren't. No, they weren't.
They lost the last three beforehand.
That's right. So you've got fresher bodies in Fahoko and these guys, so which means that perhaps you're fresher, which means you can go for longer. It's hard to pinpoint anything down, but I think there's multitude factors to it. But good question.
Yeah, nice. Quick little shout out for a little sort of quite cheeky favourite of the show, Big Joey G, Gaziano, recorded his first sack. As I will divulge later, it looks like he has played his last game for a little while, unfortunately. But, I'm still seeing, with Kenny Murray, talking about the linebacker help, I'm finding that as far as pass rushing goes, Drew Tranquil to be far more effective a rushing linebacker than Kenny Murray. He is still a big knock while he is improving is that he's still magneting himself into blockers and not being able to get off them, which, can be a bit frustrating. All right. Yeah. Thanks to the boys again for that video. Good to see you both enjoying yourself. Lloydie looks like he's had a few and got a new jacket. Looking sharp, champ. All right. From the game, injuries. Keemon Hall suffered a hamstring. He'll be week to week. As I said, Joe Gaziano sustained a groin injury, and that's looking at weeks, not days, according to Coach Staley. There's no real update on Joey Bosa. Bit of a broken record here. May or may not be at practice later this week, probably next. So we're probably looking to get a warm-up game into him, potentially against the Broncos in week 18, and then fresh for ideally a playoff run. Derwin James expected to be back at practice later this week. We've got the extra day playing Monday night, but he's still day-to-day progressing or doing that kind of jazz. Look, pretty good chat all round. Positive stuff about the defense coming together and keep working. Still sort of shirking a little bit of stuff about the offense just not quite finding its groove, even though we've got everyone back in the lineup, really. All right, Jack, let's run us through what happened in the Colts' last outing. I heard it was a good
Wowee. It was one of 3 games on the Saturday. What a hell of a slate of games, man. Well, we saw the Vikings complete the biggest ever comeback in NFL history, erasing that 33-point deficit by beating the Matt Ryan-led Colts 39-36. Greg Joseph hitting the 40-yard field goal with 3 seconds left in overtime Saturday to win the NFC North Division in their typical dramatic fashion. Not the Minneapolis Miracle, but geez, I tell you what, it was fucking pretty close. Matt Ryan must be walking around thinking that he's cursed because he comes the first quarterback to not only lose the biggest lead in a Super Bowl, but also in regular season. So poor old Jeffrey Saturday was sitting there and he was seeing his Saturday both literally and figuratively turn into the Monday morning scaries. So, and also, funnily enough, he's the only coach with the name Saturday to ever coach on a Saturday. There you go. There's a little tidbit there. So, I mean, geez, Kirk Cousins just had his way with the Colts in the second half. He passed for just over or around 460 yards, 4 touchdowns. Who were actually trailing 36-7 late in the third quarter and still won it. I mean, it's quite unbelievable. I mean, Jonathan Taylor the big bit of news there is obviously he's done his ankle and doesn't look like he's going to come back for the rest of the year. So that's poignant for our matchup with them. But yeah, hell of a game. I watched all of it. Very, very, very fun watch. And I did feel a little sorry for Jeff Saturday, who's sort of stepped into that role. But anyway, fuck yeah, we're playing it now, and hopefully we get the win against them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't believe I couldn't comprehend them coughing that up. That was just like building something and watching it all burn in front of you. Because it was just such a two-sided coin affair. Like they were blocked punt, return for a touchdown, interception. They were just forcing all kinds of pressure and incompletion. Stephon Gilmore was just being all shady on Justin Jefferson, and then bang, didn't he turn the tape and just tear him a new one?
Unbelievable.
It was an awesome matchup. And there's still some pieces on this Indi team, even though I think they've been outscored in the last 2 fourth quarters by something like
56 points or something.
56 points, something. Yeah, it was mid-50s. That's nuts. It's a tough one to swallow if you're a Colts fan, but
unbelievable.
Look, you just don't know what you're going to get with Matt Ryan, do you? And they've got some receivers. Pittman can do some stuff. Alec Pierce, I like, the former Bearcat. But yeah, losing Jonathan Taylor is a big out for them, a big problem. They did finish the game out with Zach Moss, and I forget who their third back is off the top of my head. It'll come to me, but Jonathan Taylor's one of the best runners in the league. So
yeah, Deion Jackson was his name.
Deion Jackson's the one. Yep.
Yeah.
He had a fumble as well. So yeah, Matt Ryan's thrown a few picks. He's thrown some fumbles. I think what's he thrown something like he's like 13 and 12 touchdowns to interceptions. So look, there's a lot of promise. I reckon we've just got to work our way into getting at this quarterback. Is there any particular strength of theirs that you see as a massive concern for the Chargers? Or they can win this game.
100%. I think the Colts defense is still very strong. We have to have a game plan for DeForest Buckner. He had 1 sack, 2 hits, and 5 hurries against Kirk Cousins. He played out of his mind. Bobby Okereke is playing really well. Deo Odeyingbo, I think that's the name. You've got Kwity Paye there.
You've done very well.
You've got Kwity Paye, who's a decent rookie. Gilmore, as you alluded to, is a 10th ranked cornerback per PFF in the league. And you've also got Rodgers out there, who's ranked number 6. So, they're no slouches. They're really good. And you've got Rodney McLeod having a pretty good season at strong safety. So, yeah, their defense is a handful, man. This isn't going to be a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination. Because I think the Colts, and this is kind of a strength and a weakness, but the Colts and Jeffrey Saturday are going to be out for blood when we play them. They're going to be wanting to win. And so they'll throw the kitchen sink, I think, in the first quarter. So we're going to have to absorb pressure from them because they're going to come out hungry. And now
Trying
that
to take
could,
advantage of the O-line. Absolutely.
that's right, and that could be a blessing and a curse, right? Because you throw everything at it, still doesn't work, then you just fall into a complete capitulation spiral. So yeah, I think the defense. You'll probably talk about some of the weaknesses, Andy, but the defense for me is the biggest strength of the Colts by far.
For sure. Well, I think I alluded to it a little bit just before, but for mine, it's a big weakness of theirs is just their QB play.
Yeah.
He doesn't protect, Matt Ryan does not protect the ball. There's instances where he has a clean pocket and the throw that comes out of his hand is just pedestrian at best, geriatric almost.
Yeah.
Really just sort of starting to lose it. He's getting sacked a bunch. That and losing a reliable gun elite running back is just seeing how this offense operates. Also, I think it's their pass blocking that has been pretty substandard. Not seeing a whole lot of output from any of their starting guys. Bernard Raymond's actually been probably one of the more impressive ones, and he's
the big Austrian.
Quentin Nelson's kind of gone down a little bit too.
Yeah.
I think on the season maybe, yeah.
Andy,
Look,
you're being very nice to Matt Ryan here because let's be honest, he's a bottom 5 quarterback. All the stats, all the metrics, he's a bottom 5 quarterback. And you're right, the Colts line is nowhere near as good as it used to be. I think we should also mention that there's absolutely no wide receivers to think of. Behind Michael Pittman, who was targeted 14 times for 10 catches, who only had 60 yards, you've got Pierce, Campbell, and Mo Ali Cox at tight end. So you're looking at their scraping at the bottom of the barrel. So I think our defense is going to have an absolute field day. They're offensively, they're in a bit of trouble.
I'd like to think so. It's going to be probably just watching the way that their special teams played last week, it's going to be one of our bigger special teams challenges. Blocked punt.
Good pickup.
That's like they're scoring 30 plus points a game, man. That's the reality. That's one of their biggest strengths, I think, is that they're scoring over 30 points against Dallas, against Minnesota, and we ain't doing shit. We're not putting up those points. We're not converting. It's just popped into my head. I just wanted to shout out Nasir Adderley. Great play on that interception. Play on. That's a big concern for me, is that they are finding a way to score on defense. Pick 6 to Julian Blackman as well. Herbert's just thrown 2 interceptions. You could see that he was dirty on himself, and I don't think that that's going to be a repeat thing, or I'm concerned about that. But it's a reality. If they're getting a lot of pressure on him, he drops his time to throw.
I just don't see where they're going to score points on offense. I mean, without Jonathan Taylor, the biggest weapon, if not the biggest weapon at running back in the league, without them, I don't know. I mean, Zach Moss is no slouch, as you said, but do you want to?
Him and Deion Jackson still put up 100 yards on 37 carries or something between the two of them. So I mean, they're not going at much clip, but look.
Hey, I'll take 3.7 yards a carry against our defense. That's great. That's awesome. That's a win for us. That's a win.
Absolutely.
That's a win. So do you want to talk about a bit of? I've just got a couple of things in terms of tactics, and then we get onto a score, and then we'll go.
Done.
We're done.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just said throw early and get points up as quickly as possible. So Lombardi, I'm looking for you to be creative. Put pressure on the wide receivers and Ryan. Easily the 2 weakest positional groups for the Colts, wide receiver and quarterback. Put the pressure on them and just let Herbo cook.
Yep. Nice. I want to see more pressure on Matt Ryan blitzing from like the slot. I want to see more Bryce Callahan in there because he's effective. I want to see less blitzing from the likes of Kenny Murray. He's performing well in coverage. I want him to be the drop back coverage linebacker. Just something for them going forward, especially because Jelani Woods had a good reception last week as well. Mo Ali Cox, the tight end too. They are used in the passing game. Let's protect that middle of the field. He is relatively fast in open field and has a bit of a nous for making contact at the right time and getting at the ball. I think we need to maintain commitment to the run game and just look, just adjust appropriately past the scripted aspect of the game. Like, we can't be seeing just nonsense. That 1st and 10 end around to DeAndre Carter. Sure, big knock on Mike Williams for the poor run blocking.
Scrap it. Scrap the play. Get rid of it.
What are you doing calling that on 1st and 10 in that situation? Like, that's the sort of shit you do in their 30-yard line when it's like 2nd and 2 or 2nd and 3. And you go, fuck it, give it a go. Not expecting this here. Maybe we'll get 25 yards out of it. Maybe we'll score a touchdown. Don't do it in our territory and get a 10-yard loss. Clowns. So there we go. Just a little bit more concise. What do you got for the score, man?
I'm going to say we have to absorb a lot of pressure early. We go down 2 scores early in the first quarter, but we rally and we win 31-24.
Where are they scoring their points in the first quarter?
It'll be a turnover. It'll be a turnover. I have a feeling that either there's going to be a turnover on special teams, or Herbert might throw a awkward first interception, because I have a feeling that Jeffrey Saturday and the defense are going to throw everything at the Chargers offensive line. We've got to rally and we'll be okay. 31-24.
Okay. Well, let's hope you never tell my future, because that'd suck. I'm going Chargers win. What score did you give? 31-24. Yeah,
31-24, yeah.
I've gone 27-17. Another massive defensive effort. And both touchdowns on offense for them. No turnovers, none of that nonsense. And Herbert just gets back with a nice clean sheet.
And we get to watch the game together. First time in
a long time.
Yeah.
All right, shirts off at halftime. You beauty. Oh, guys, thanks so much for joining us. A little treat there with Alan Kyle joining the show from Carlsbad, California. And we will see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast.
See you guys. Go Bolts.
Go Bolts.
Backpedals looking, firing, he's got Floyd turning, got it, zigzag, 10, 5, high step, touchdown, San Diego! Woo! Good night to all!